we'll make a start. Now I'm going to have to ask you some silly questions.
Right.
Because you know who you are and I know who you are. So, could we start with your full name? How were you christened?
I've only got one, Margaret.
Margaret?
Playle. Or I was Margaret Beard to start with.
Margaret Beard. And when were you born?
The 22nd of April, 1908.
And where were you born?
Bungalow, Wash Corner.
Wash
Cottage.
Wash Corner in Fordham?
Yeah.
Or
on the outskirts, you see.
Ford Street, I suppose.
No, not Ford Street. No.
Fordham.
That's still Fordham.
Mm.
Ford Street is the other side of the bridge.
Ah, right. So present address is the same?
I was born in that bungalow.
And you've been there just about all your life?
Well, apart from about 2 years when I married.
Mm. How about brothers and sisters?
There were 8 of us. Well, actually 9. Well, to start with, there were 12. The first 2 never knew anything about. They must have died childbirth. Mm. Then the third one was a cripple. Mm. So we never knew her. She was in a home. Mm. Then there were 8 of us after that.
And where did you fit in?
7th.
You're number 7.
7th child. So.
Can we go through the oldest in order by name? So number 4. The 4th.
The 4th.
Well, unless you know the first 3 names.
My oldest brother was Robert.
Yes.
Then my sister Nellie. Then brother Frederick. And then I came.
1908.
Margaret.
Yes.
Then there was Charles. Then Sydney. Then Mary. Harry. And then there was a baby. She died 1917. My father was out at the war then.
When you were 9 years old, you would have been.
Yeah, would be.
Yeah.
90s, yes.
Right, father. What was your father's name?
Charles.
Charles.
Beard.
No second name.
No.
And where was he born? Do you know?
Somewhere up Fordham here. But the old cottage was pulled down. That was in one of Playle's fields.
It's down Church Road.
Where?
Church Road.
Church Road.
Church Road. So how old was he when you were born, or do you know when he was born?
Who?
Your father.
Oh dear, let me think.
He was born in 78.
78?
1878.
1878.
Right, 1878. So, where did he work? What was he doing?
In the building trade.
In and around Fordham? Bricklaying?
I think Theobald at Chapel.
Yes. Nothing to do with the big chapel viaduct, I suppose. That was before.
Well, I think he was a little bit, but I'm not quite sure.
Because that was the time of the railway.
I don't know if he was building it or whether there was any repair. But just a little bit connected, but I'm not sure.
So did he have just the one job, or was he doing all sorts of things?
Just from house to building houses.
He didn't build Wash Cottage, or?
Oh no. Do you know, before that was in a dwelling place, that was factory.
Sack factory.
Sack
factory, wasn't it?
So Hessian sacks.
Because there were 2, there was a mill down at Ford Street and a mill down at Fordham. And one was...
Watermill, presumably.
One was watermill at Ford Street and one was a weaver. Well, one of those wool. Anyway, they made sacks for these mills. And then, we'd never found out when it was made into a dwelling place. They built the back place on.
So
So the front part was older than the back.
often happens, I suppose. But the eldest child presumably would have been born there when your parents were married?
We were all born there.
So it was certainly a dwelling by then. So as far as you know, was father ever out of work?
Pardon?
Was he ever out of work?
No.
And he went into the...
He went to...
he went to be a soldier in 1914.
1916.
Yeah.
16. And he was wounded 1917.
Do you know which regiment he was with?
Fusiliers.
Royal Fusiliers, yeah. Okay. Let's talk about mother. What was mother's name?
Edith Ann Broyd.
Broyd. B-R-O...
B-R-O-Y-D.
And a local girl?
Brook Farm, just above me.
Yes. Yeah.
But that was called the Traveller's Rest because that was what do you call it? Off licence.
Oh, was it? Brook Farm. That was an off licence. And that was up this end of town.
I think that was called the Kiln because my grandfather, Mum's father, had made bricks there, the brick kiln.
So Brook Farm above you then?
Towards
along the main
chapel.
road.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Not here.
Yeah.
Towards chapel.
So she was born there, or as far as
Yes.
you know?
Is that right?
Your mother?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, she was born there, and then of course went to Fordham School.
Yes. Okay. So do you know when she was born, or how old she was when you were born?
About the same time as grandfather, I think, wasn't he?
Yes, Dad was 2 years older than my mother.
Right. Okay.
And Mum died in 1933. She was 54.
Won't go back.
Yeah. She was. Yeah. No, that's fine. Did she work before she was married? Do you know?
No. No, because her mother died when my mum was 3. Therefore, she stayed at home.
And looked after the home.
After Dad, Granddad, I expect.
Did she work after marriage? Do you know?
No, no.
She had enough to look after with all
I
the
think
gear.
she had enough to do.
Right, okay. How about grandparents? Do you remember your grandparents?
Well, my grandfather Broyd, yes. He lived to be 86.
And what was his name?
William Broyd.
Broyd. So what were they like? What was he like especially?
A bit staid and didn't see much of them.
But again, a local man?
No, they came from Gestingthorpe.
And he's the only grandparent you knew, is he?
My father's father, we never knew him. He died quite young with cancer. And then the grandmother, we didn't know much about her, but she went to Kent and lived with one of her daughters. So we didn't know much about the Beard.
No, not that side. So where did the Beard side family come from? Well, the Broyds were Gestingthorpe.
No, the Broyds, not the Beards.
Yeah.
So where did
The
the
Beards were all Fordham.
Oh, they were. So again, good local people, yeah?
Yes.
Well, let's go to childhood days. Were you born at home?
Oh yes.
No hospitals in those days?
No, all born at home.
Do you know who delivered you?
Oh, crumbs.
Dr. Wirt?
Oh, Dr. Wirtz. And then we used to have
Would it have been him, or would it have been a midwife, do you think?
they used to have a midwife or such as.
Yeah. So the house that, well, you now live in,
Yes.
can you describe it as it was then, and has it changed much? What do you remember from the very earliest days?
there's, where there's a third bedroom now, there was a big pantry. And that was, we didn't have a bathroom until 1964.
So how did the washing go on? Where did the hot water come from?
Copper, you know, coal, under the old-fashioned copper.
And where did you draw the water from?
We used to have a great big water butt under the...
There was a well?
Not till, when we were small, there's a brook the opposite side us. Used to fetch water from there for washing, if there wasn't any soft water. And then for our drinking water, we'd have to go over to Friar's house with buckets.
Well, they had a well, presumably.
But afterwards,
Eventually.
Dad bought the house, 1929, because that used to belong to Sir Worthington Evans.
But he got the opportunity to purchase the freehold.
Because he'd been renting it from Worthington Evans. And then he sold up Pendon Hall, Friar's Farm, and our bungalow.
And Father was able...
That was 1929.
Any ideas how much he paid for it?
250.
250.
250.
So how many bedrooms were there in the house?
Well,
that you remember?
You see, in the front there was 2 bedrooms, and then another one which we used as a bedroom. So actually that made 3 bedrooms.
With several children in the house at one time. It was topping and towing, was it?
There was 2 double beds in one room where the boys slept, 3 in a bed, or 3 and 2, wouldn't it be, with 5. And then us 3 girls were in the middle room, in one bed, and then of course Mum and Dad in the other room. And
you didn't have a bathroom, so there wasn't a bathroom until much...
We had a great big bath, you know, which you hung outside.
The zinc.
Galvanised.
Galvanised.
Zinc or...
Yeah, bring it in and... bath night was when? Once a week or...?
Yeah, sat in front of the kitchen fire.
So you all been in the same water or...?
Oh, I don't know.
Start with the big one and work down.
I don't think we all went the same.
Oh, the cleaners one.
Yeah. What about lighting?
Pardon?
What about lighting? Do you remember?
Oil lamps.
From your earliest
Candles.
days? Yeah. And eventually you went electric?
Electric.
Before the war? Second World War, that is?
1929, I think. Yeah, 1929. And then after Dad bought the bungalow, he sunk a well for our drinking water.
Oh, right. Because you're quite low there anyway, so I should think...
That was marvellous. He didn't have to go very deep.
No, I shouldn't think so.
All the springs.
Yeah, you're right on that, aren't you?
Yeah.
So what form of heating? What about heating the house?
All coal.
1 fire, 2 fires? Or?
We'd got a great big, stove. So there was the, what you call it, on the side,
Well, you had
where you heat the water, you know. And then of course there was all the lovely tops. Quite a big stove.
So housework, presumably mother did all the housework, or did you have any help?
Oh no, not the beginning, later on, because she she was ill quite often. In the finish she died from pneumonia and worn out heart, which was understandable.
That's right, it was hard days.
I mean, she had 8 of us to look after when my father was gone to the war. But she's a lovely mother.
Hard days indeed. So no servants at all?
No,
nobody came in to do anything?
Not till later on, then we used to have a woman come and do the washing.
So, who did the cooking and how was the food cooked, I suppose?
In this big oven.
Like
My mum did it, yeah.
Like a big arbor or something, yeah.
Just the
What about the laundry?
Well,
Again, mother?
Mum did that to start with.
She took charge of all this. So did the children have to help with household chores?
As we grew up, we all helped.
You all had a go.
Yeah.
And did you receive any pocket money?
No.
Did it for the love of it?
When I got 18, because I never went out to work, I had to stop. I was the little thing of the family.
I'm just going to take a little break and just check that this is okay on the camera. Yes, that looks good. That looks good. I can't see it from there. Right, I can edit that out later on. Right, well, pocket money then. You didn't get any, but...
When I got about 18, I used to go catch the bus into Colchester and go to Woolworths Fridays from 1 o'clock, Friday afternoon, 1 o'clock till 8 o'clock. I used to have 5 shillings.
Where did that come
And then
from?
on Saturday, that was 12, no, wait a minute, 1 o'clock till 8. And I had 8 shillings.
Oh, right.
So that, I used to have to buy my own clothes then.
Oh, well, you could. So how old were you then?
18.
And
And I went until my mum died when I was 24.
so, sorry, tell me again, where did this money come from?
Pardon?
How did you earn this money?
Woolworths
Oh, right, working...
in High Street,
Yes,
Colchester.
retail, yes. Okay. Mother and father's work at home. Did Mum do any sewing or needlework?
Well, she had to do all the darning and whatever, patching and this, that and the other.
Did she make any of the family's clothes, or were
No,
they bought?
no, she didn't have time.
No? Quite. So were clothes bought new or second-hand? Or?
Handed down, maybe, from
I think
aunts and uncles.
I think we had some handed down. Some
From younger children as
we
well?
always had new shoes.
Always had new... And
had
who
good-
repaired them? Did
we had
father?
good- my dad did.
Yes, he did. Yes.
Yeah, we all had good shoes.
How about father? Did he grow his own vegetables?
Yes.
Or have an allotment, or was it
We had a
use the
big
garden?
garden. And then the allotment at Church Road.
They're all still there, aren't they?
Yes.
What about callers to the house? What arrangements were made for sweeping the chimneys, for instance?
We used to get a chimney sweep, yes, and then the butcher, the baker,
They all used to
Fishman.
call? Yeah.
they all used to call.
What about the doctor? How often did he call? Just-
Well, if you needed him, he'd call. If not, we had to walk up to Penman Hall.
Well, this was Dr. Wirtz again.
Dr. Wirtz, yes. But they were all very good. They used to call quite a lot.
How about the insurance man? Was he,
Oh, yes,
he figured in young life?
Penny a week.
yeah, there was some insurance, not much. But
Yeah.
And then I think we used to pay, or they paid threepence a week later on for the hospital.
Mealtime. What sort of things did you have to eat, I suppose? I mean, what was Sunday dinner? Was it
Because we used to have breakfast before we went to school, toast and eggs and that. And then, because we had to take lunch to school, sandwiches. Then Mum used to cook, I don't know, about 5:30 when my dad come home from work. So we used to always had plenty of vegetables. And we always had chickens in the garden and a pig. So we were well provided for.
How often did the pig get, or how many pigs did you get through? Was it once a year, or?
I expect, I don't know, once a year, I expect.
You were out of the way when he was dispatched, were you?
Oh, that was, they went to Colchester to be slaughtered.
So up to the abattoir. How about wine, jam, pickles? Did Mum make anything
Oh,
like that?
Mum used to make all jams, pickles,
All sorts of
and Dad
things.
used to make homemade wine.
Was he a poacher, Dad?
Pardon?
Was he a poacher? Did he have a gun, or
Oh, yes.
you'd go out and shoot a rabbit, would he?
Oh, yes.
With or without permission?
Oh, permission. Oh, yes. To start off with, we had the meadow next to us, which we thought was ours, but it wasn't. We used it. And then there were fields, well, I expect belonged to Worthington Evans. We was always allowed up there. I mean, years ago, people were more friendly than what they are now.
I know what you mean. So, thinking about meal times then, what about table manners and saying grace? Was that something that was important?
We had to sit and we were not allowed to talk too much. Behave ourselves. Speak when we were spoken to.
Moving on, discipline and punishment. What time did you have to go to bed as a young girl?
Well, I reckon we used to have to be put to bed about 6:30 in the winter. I expect perhaps not quite so early, but we hardly ever saw our dad. And if sometimes, if they were building houses, we'll say, away, Kirby or that way, I don't know, I can't quite know how they got there, but my mum used to give me a tin and pack sandwiches, you know, for a day or two. And then we always reckoned when there was babies, we used to say they come in the Kirby tin.
So no education that way?
We never knew where they came from, only from the Kirby tin.
So were parents strict with you,
Wow.
or did you get away with all sorts of things?
No, I don't remember. You know, I don't think we don't ever remember being any bother.
Well behaved
We all
children.
helped each other, and we really had a happy home.
But if you did step out of line, what was the punishment?
I don't remember. We were so good.
What about authority then? You were presumably brought up to respect authority.
Well, I think we always respected everybody.
Excellent.
As I say, people were always friendly with us. We didn't have to.
But you could take any problems to mum and dad?
Not really.
No? And you've already said you were to be seen and not heard, certainly at mealtimes.
Yeah.
How about Sundays? Did parents believe it was right to work on a Sunday, or?
Didn't have to, did they?
No. Did your parents attend church?
Yes.
Both of them?
Yeah. Well, Mum more so than Dad, because you see, really, I only remember my father as being wounded. He was wounded 1917. He first came from France to Manchester, and then from there to London, Shepherd's Bush, where, I don't know, he's there a long time.
And what were the extent of his injuries? How bad was
A
he?
shattered hip.
Oh, goodness. Hard times. So did you attend church or Sunday school?
When we were quite small, young, I expect, we used to go to Fordham school to Sunday school, Sunday morning. And then from there we had to go from the school to the church service.
This is the church up on the hill here?
Fordham Church.
Fordham Church.
And go home for dinner. My father used to take us for a walk up the fields so Mum could have a rest. And then in the evenings, when we got a bit older, we used to walk up to Fordham Church.
Across the fields?
Yes. And in the winter, there used to be what they called the mission room down at Ford Street. And we used to go down there Sunday evenings. So we used to have to go to Sunday school and church morning, afternoon and evening.
So denomination was Church of England?
Church of England.
And the mission school was Church of England as well, was it?
Fordham Church, yes.
Yeah. So what about choir? Were you in the choir or
No.
Any singing ability?
I don't think so.
No?
No, I wasn't.
So
My brothers were.
Did either of your parents have any position in the church?
My mum and my Uncle Frank, they were both in the choir.
Mm.
They've got lovely voices. Then Sunday evenings, before we went to bed, we all used to sit round the fire and my mum used to sing to us.
Just Sundays?
Sunday evenings, yes.
And presumably you had to wear special best clothes on Sunday?
Oh yes.
For church?
Mm.
What about temperance associations or the Band of Hope? Was that anything you
Oh,
knew
there
about?
was a kind of a Band of Hope down that mission room.
Mm.
We all signed the pledge.
Did you? Did you keep to it?
Not lately. Well, I mean, we were never loud.
Mm.
We used to have a little tiny drop of port when we got older,
Mm.
Christmas morning,
Mm.
and that was all ever.
Sure they wouldn't have minded, would they? Did you share in any other activities organised by the church?
Don't think so. You see, actually, we were on the outskirts of the village.
Mm.
We never felt we belonged to the village much.
Mm. Well, I'll come on to entertainment, but did you have to say your prayers at home?
Not really, I don't think we used to say them when we got to bed on our own.
Mm. Mm. So what else did you do on a Sunday?
Well, there wasn't much else to
No.
do.
That was taken up with most of the time. So if we talk about family gatherings and entertainment,
Oh yes.
what about birthdays and Christmas?
Do you know, I was trying to think what we did for birthdays, but I don't think we ever did much. But for Christmas, you see, my mum's sister lived down, I don't know if you know the Clampins next door to the Shoulder Mutton.
Mm.
They were builders, weren't they?
Mm.
And that was my mother's sister.
Mm.
We used to go down there quite a lot, and we always went down there Boxing Day. Or was it Christmas Day?
There was music, was there? Was anybody musical in the family?
My uncle used to play the accordion,
Yeah.
my mum's brother. And then for New Year, we always used to have quite a big family party, Christmas Eve.
Lots of silly games or...
No, just sit round and the grown-ups used to sing, and it was quite a...
What sort of presents did you get for, say, birthday?
Not much.
No.
I think we used to get a sugar mouse in the stockings, and perhaps a sausage roll or a mince pie or an apple orange, you know, nothing much.
They had oranges, yes, well I used to have that. What about Easter or Guy Fawkes? Did you have Easter eggs?
I expect we did.
But not chocolate, I suppose.
I don't, so I expect we must have done, I don't remember.
Was Guy Fawkes a good night, or was that...
Used to have a few fireworks.
Mm.
I expect Dad used to do them for us.
Let a few off.
But not a big party or anything.
Do you remember attending a funeral when you were a child?
No.
No. Not that you can recall. What about weddings?
I don't think we ever went to any of those.
There must have been some, but...
Yeah.
Were you ever a bridesmaid?
Yes. What was I, 4 times? When I was grown up, of course. When I was a big girl.
At Fordham, or...?
One of, my sister and my cousin, Fordham. One at Whittam.
We've talked about sing-songs, and what sort of indoor games did you play as children, or what games generally did you
We
play?
used to play tiddlywinks and Ludo and all those little card games.
Inside. What about outside with other children?
Well, in the main road, we used to spin our tops and bowl our hoops. And
Not much traffic in those days. Yeah?
No traffic at all, hardly.
When did you see your first motor car?
The first one we ever saw was a Mr. Alligan from Friar's Farm. I just remember there was a car, but what it was like I just cannot tell you.
You must have been very young.
I was very old then.
So were there books and newspapers in the home?
Oh, we used to have newspaper, and I expect we did books.
You used to read a little bit, did you?
I expect we did, I can't remember.
How about a library? Did you go to a library?
No, not till later on.
Let's talk a little bit about school days. So how old were you when you started school?
5.
And that was at Fordham School,
Yeah.
was it?
Used to have to walk.
Even when the snow was on the ground?
Yes.
Trudge up through the field?
Through 2 fields and through the churchyard and then down to Fordham School. So it's about a mile, I expect, a good mile.
And did you enjoy it? School days?
Well, we just did it, and you do things and get on with it, don't you?
Can you remember the names of the teachers? Or how many teachers were there?
Oh dear. There's a Mrs. Leatherdale, and I think the schoolmaster was Mr. Sumners.
And what subjects did you do that you can remember?
Well, we used to get there at 9 o'clock, and then there was scripture till 9:45. Then there'd either be arithmetic or composition or dictation, history, geography, English.
So which were your best subjects?
Well, I think arithmetic and reading, dictation, yes.
And your worst subject?
I didn't like geography.
So were the teachers strict, and what about punishment meted out?
Well, we just got on with it, you know. I don't ever remember getting any bother.
What about playtime? Group games?
Well, we used to play rounders or hopscotch or that sort of thing. I think we used to have about 10 minutes, quarter of an hour.
Homework? Did you have to take homework home?
Not till we got older.
And all of your schooling was at Fordham School?
Fordham.
Right the way through?
I left when I was 14.
Yeah.
Not 24.
Well, moving to the First World War, what memories there? Were there food shortages that you remember?
Oh yes. My mum used to walk to Lexington, catch a tram and sort of queue up, and perhaps I'd be lucky to get something and perhaps I weren't.
Bread or potatoes? Or?
No, we used to have bread delivered. Potatoes we grew. That was more meat and fish, the most important.
You didn't have any soldiers billeted. Billeting of soldiers wasn't this far out, was it?
There was Searchlight at Fordham, at Wash Farm, and then there were the guns on Fordham Heath, and of course there were the Americans.
That's
That's the
Second World War.
That's the Second War. Yeah, we're
Oh.
thinking on the first really
the
at the moment.
first.
We'll move to the second, but
Oh, I can't. I don't
you wouldn't remember seeing
I don't remember.
Zeppelins, would you?
No, I don't remember much about the First War.
How about the victory in Europe's celebrations after the First World War? Was that something that you can remember? VE Day? No? The war was over and you knew Father was...
That was it. I don't think there was much.
So when did Father actually come home again?
He was still in hospital 1918, the armistice. Because I don't know how he slept home, but he did.
What was he capable of when he came home? How bad was he?
Well, he was on crutches.
But could he resume work, or?
Not for quite a while.
But he did eventually
he did
go back.
afterwards,
Yeah,
yes.
he did eventually go back to his trade.
Yes.
So how about leisure time then, out of school?
Well, so we just played hopscotch and spun at tops and bowler hoops and went birds nesting and primrosing and that sort of thing.
And who were your special friends?
Well, only your neighbours. You know, we all got on very well together.
What were their names?
One was Floribug.
Floribug, yeah.
And they lived just across the road.
I've heard that name. Did you go to the seaside ever? Was that a...
Not till we were grown up.
No? No. No days out then?
No.
Cycling?
Did
you do any cycling?
No. Couldn't afford a bicycle.
What about pets?
Anyway.
Pets?
Oh, we always had a dog and a cat. Oh, yes. Oh, and rabbits. Used to keep rabbits.
But you used to eat those, I suppose?
No, they used to go to the market.
Oh, right.
We couldn't bear to eat them.
Any special hobbies or interests?
Well, I suppose we used to do knitting and needlework. Nothing spectacular.
Dancing? Music lessons?
Not music, no, but well, I wasn't allowed to go dancing till I was about 17 or 18. And that we used to go up to the village hall.
How about the guides, girl guides?
No, I didn't ever belong to any of those.
So the village hall, would that be the one that's there now?
Yes.
1920 something that was built, wasn't it?
Quite late, wasn't it?
Okay, starting work. What was your first job? I think wool was
That's the only ones I did.
Was it?
Just those 2 days.
So how did you get that job?
Well, I must went and asked if I could. I think a friend of mine, she was doing the same thing, and because then she told me about it. So I suspect my mother went with me. I don't know. I forget it.
So how did you spend your wages? Was that mainly on clothes, or?
To start with, I had to pay me bus fare, and that was 10p return.
Well, you had 5 shillings, so that wasn't too bad, was it? 5 shillings and 8 shillings, you said?
Yeah. So that was 2 10p returns.
Do you remember the people that you worked with? How did you get on with them? What was the boss like?
Well, at Woolworths, oh, they were all right.
And Woolworths was then in the high street, was it?
Yes.
And did men and women work together?
No, that's mostly all girls. Don't think there were any boys. Because there's the manager.
So you wouldn't really have, that was really part-time, I suppose,
yes.
Wasn't it? So, right. Talking about your parents then, their social life, did father belong to any club that you know of?
No.
Did he go to the pub?
He used to go down to the pub for a drink.
Which one was that?
The Queen's Head.
Across the border? Across the river? And did he have any special hobbies?
Well, he didn't have time. He was doing the gardens and then mended our shoes and
shooting rabbits.
Well, shooting rabbits.
Maybe after a bit of hunting or whatever. Did mother belong to any sort of organisation, club?
No, no.
And did she ever go out with your father?
Not much.
No.
Never went anywhere much, any of them. There was nowhere much to go.
So how about politics then? Did father support any particular...
Conservatives.
He was a conservative. Did he get actively involved, or
no.
Did your mother?
No.
So did your neighbours sort of enjoy a similar standard of living to you?
We were all much the same, and we were really, that was like a big family. You'd go to theirs for a cup of tea, they'd come to ours, and if you needed any help,
Mm.
We'd help each other. My mum was such a kind lady, she'd help anybody.
Mm. But you were obviously brought up to show respect for certain
Oh, definitely.
certain people.
Yes, yes. But
The
it's
doctor
just-
was obviously presumably a special personage in the area.
Mm.
That's the vicar as well? Or
Well,
rector?
they used to visit.
Mm. Mm. Were there any particular rough sort of characters around that you
Not
kept
really.
out of the way of?
Don't remember any. No.
So, you say that father bought the house in 1929.
29.
Did he have a mortgage or was that?
Oh yeah, well, I expect that's what you'd call it.
Mm. Mm.
Pay so much a week or a month, I forget which.
Mm. So when you were older, you went to the cinema, I suppose, and the theatre in town, did you? Or
Well,
not?
I think we used to go on a Saturday morning. That used to be the children's special.
Mm. And where did you meet your husband?
He used to come round our way with bread, and because he was Fordham, you see. Playle's had the shop, the bakehouse, and
And you took a shine to him, did you?
or else he did me, I'm not sure which.
What about smoking?
No, never allowed.
Never allowed, never did. So when you started courting, where did you go? Did you go out much, or was it?
Not really, because as I said, being a baker,
Mm.
he used to make the dough in the evenings.
Mm.
He used to just come down, perhaps we used to sit indoors with the rest of the family.
Mm.
Didn't do anything very spectacular.
Didn't go nipping off into the wild blue yonder on a motorbike or anything?
No, no.
You used to go dancing, didn't you?
I followed him down when I was 18,
Yeah.
but
They wouldn't hold many, would it, that village hall? It must have been a bit cramped, bumping into people.
I don't go, I was all right, but, you know, just not exceptional, but respect
Mm.
all we were used to.
So, talking about early memories again, transport, you remember horse-drawn traffic more than cars in those days, I suppose?
Well, I expect they what used to call a horse and cart, wasn't it? Just a little cart thing.
That's how things used to... Were the streets dirty with horse manure, or were they dusty? Were they metalled?
Don't remember.
Mm. The road outside your house, was it a mud road, or
Just sand and
did it get muddy in the winter?
not particular mud. Sand isn't mud,
Mm.
is it? But
It's a bit messy.
that was better on the main road as coming up to Fordham.
Mm.
I remember grass in the middle of the road coming up to Fordham,
Mm.
what we call ponders.
Ponders Road, yeah. But there must have been carriers going up to Sudbury or
Not to Sudbury.
Halstead and yeah.
There was a
coming down.
carrier into Colchester,
Mm.
but I mean we didn't go much.
Mm.
If everybody went, that was my mother.
What about characters? Were there any regular tramps you used to see? Or?
Oh, there used to be some from what's the place at Stanway? Albright's.
Mm.
But they didn't call it Albright years ago. But there used to be the old tramps walk from Stanway to Sudbury, I think.
Mm.
They used to call it ours with
Men, were they?
a tin,
Mm.
you know, with tea in,
Mm.
and would we give them some boiling water?
Mm.
But they were never any bother.
Mm.
We weren't afraid of them. They were,
How about gypsies?
yeah, they used to come round selling this, that, and the other pegs and that, but they were no bother.
Mm. Mm. Well, do you remember anything about the workhouse? There wasn't really a workhouse in the area, was there?
No, that was Colchester.
What was people's attitude in those days to mentally handicapped people?
Well, I think they were more in a home.
Mm. So you didn't often
come in contact with them.
Did you see cattle and pigs and whatever being driven to market?
No.
Not something that regularly would come past you?
No, no.
What about local shops?
Well, in Ford Street, there was the blacksmith, then of course the Queen's Head, and then the bakery and the shop, and then a little further down there's another shop and the post office, and then across the road there was that pub,
the Coopers. Yeah, the Coopers, yeah.
And then the Scouts, and Mr. Head lived, forget the name of the house, next door to the pub. And then where the old houses, Mitchell's, there was the Scouts had a room just on the edge of outside the. That's where the Scouts. But I didn't have Girl Guide to that. I expect they were in Colchester, perhaps were at A-Room, but we were never.
Well, moving on through then up to, well, when you were first married, so when were you married?
1936.
And where were you married?
Fordham Church.
And so where did you live when you...
When we first married, we went to a cottage down Ford Street because Playle's had got some cottages along Church Road, but there was an old lady who hired one, but she'd gone to live with her daughter at Buras, but she hadn't given the house up, so we had to wait for that to go into this cottage. And then we weren't there all that long before my father come up to me. He was on his own, and we gave our home up and went and looked after my father.
So when
Took David home, he was 7 months old.
All right.
Victorian father.
So how many children did you have?
Who, me? 2, boy and a girl.
David and?
Diane.
So when David and Diane grew up at Wash Cottage?
Yes. No, David was born down Ford Street.
Not at home. Oh, sorry, yes, at the other house, yes.
Diane was born in the bungalow.
So what characters do you remember? Let's say as you grew up, who were the characters, the interesting, the eccentric people, or people you knew, like the grave diggers, or I don't know. Were there any interesting people that you can remember?
Not particularly. I mean, we didn't actually go out much.
Well, there was no particular people that used to...
Where are you now, Jess? When Mum had married or before
marriage?
marriage?
Well, when you were just Fordham characters, really, I suppose, right the way through.
Well, you see, as I'd say, living down where we did, we were not really in the village.
You didn't tend to see that many people, no?
Not village people. Once I left school, I didn't come up to the village much.
Were the landlords of the pubs interesting people, or didn't you see them?
We weren't allowed.
Just checking time. Okay, right. Okay, well let's carry on. Just do a little bit longer. Right, Margaret, can you tell me a little bit about your husband? His name was Jack.
Jack, yes.
Describe him to me.
Well, who's just a happy, ever so easy going. I don't think we ever fell out at all. He was so easy, wasn't he? He really was.
Very tolerant.
Tolerant, yes.
He was John
John
Playle.
Charles.
John Charles Playle,
Playle.
but known as Jack. And what did he do for a living?
Baker. The village baker.
He ran it on his own?
Well, him and his brother, Stanley, but that actually belonged to their father. They started in Fordham 1910, and the post office and shop, and I think they had the bakehouse, but I don't know if Jack's dad, if ever he was a baker.
No, he bought it from Mr. McCann.
Their pun.
George, Dad's father,
Yeah.
George Playle, came to Fordham in about 1900 and started acquiring things, if you don't mind me just
No,
doing
go
an opinion. And he bought the post office, didn't he, George? And then he bought the bakery
Yeah.
from a chap called McCann. Yes, he did.
You got all the
Yeah. And then he bought a farm. He used to go down the pub and buy things, you know. You might buy a penknife, you could go and buy a farm. You know, he was this sort of guy. Borrowed money, didn't have any money.
houses. He bought houses, didn't he?
But Jack eventually entered into the trade.
He was pushed into it.
He pushed into it. Was it just bread that he was doing, or was he a master baker? Was he doing cakes and?
No, not cakes, just bread.
So it was
Hot cross buns.
the main shop.
7 for sixpence.
So what was the competition? Where was the nearest bakery to him?
My brother down at Ford Street.
Oh right. So very,
Brother-in-law at Viewers.
yeah, very close to each other. Yeah. So you were married, 2 children. So what did you do for fun? How did life go on for you? Of course, war broke out quite soon
Well,
after.
I didn't go anywhere much because I just got me crippled father. You know,
But you used to get out to see family.
a bit, but
They'd come to you
you
as well.
see, wherever I went, I'd either got to go on the bus or walk.
So, war broke out then, and there was an airfield constructed in Fordham. What do you remember of the airfield?
Nothing at all, because I didn't ever go up that way.
So there were no limitations placed on you for security or
No.
happenings during the war? Did you ever see the planes coming over? Or?
All the planes used to come over our way to get to London.
And what about coming out from the other side? What about bombing raids or anything like that? What do you remember of anything like that? Were there any bombs?
Colchester, yes,
Colchester,
but
not much.
not Fordham. Apart from this doodlebug.
There wasn't really.
Colchester had a lot.
Not much. No, not surprised. Considering that was a
Okay. Military.
military.
But there were doodlebugs that.
Well, yes, but only one.
Just the one. Yeah.
Locally.
So the war came and went and didn't
We had
affect you too
German
much.
prisoners and Italian prisoners.
Where were they? You saw them in the village, did
Well,
you?
yeah, they used to sort of cut hedges and
Working on the farm, weren't they?
Farm work.
And you
But
got to know them quite well.
No bother at all. No.
What about the local people then around and about with the farmers? You mentioned the Doe family at Archendines.
I didn't know much about Argentines, but the one down at Wash Corner, they were very friendly.
And what was their name?
Doe.
They were Doe, yeah. And at Fordham Hall, a bit further away, but you walked through their fields, I presume, to
Yeah,
get
well,
to
that was a public footpath.
And the farmer's name?
To start with, Warren.
Mm.
Rolly Warren, we called him. We weren't allowed to go through the farmyard.
No, it's the same today, I think. Well, there we are then. Well, Girly, thanks very much for coming and talking to us, and your son David, who.
Gotcha.
I should say that today is Monday, the 21st of April, 2003, so that we have so we have a record. But it's been very interesting, and this will form a record for people in the future who
Nothing very
want to know
interesting.
something about Fordham. Well, Wash Cornham, and there's
As I say, living down there, you felt out of everything. You didn't really feel you belonged to the village.
well, very much part of it.
I used to go to Oldham more than Fordham.
But thank you very much for coming along and for being our subject today.